Just start.
Hey everybody, welcome back for a special knit and natter with myself, the yarn curator, Naomi, and my sister Zoe of the Felicity Yarn Studio channel. So,
Hey guys.
And just thought it would be fun once a month to sit down together on our channels and just record little conversations, because as it might come as no big shocker to anyone, we talk about knitting pretty much every day with each other. And
yes, it's endless text messages.
So we figured we could share some of those conversations with you guys and just, mix it up a little bit on our channels. Aside from just talking about what we're making, we can have some actual conversations with y'all. So
yeah, it's a little easier to do face to face rather than like through text or like Instagram posts, which there's no nuance there.
So today's conversation is kind of born out of the discussions that have been taking place primarily on Instagram, I think, but there's been a little bit on YouTube as well, about yarn substitutions and yarn affordability and what should and shouldn't be expected of designers.
And accessibility and how that all kind of works together and whatnot. So
we're not actually going to get into all of those nitty-gritty details today, because I think there's other videos on YouTube that I'll link down below that discuss it more nuanced and cohesively than we probably can.
Yeah, I mean, we're a little bit eloquent, but not super eloquent. And I agree with you. I think there's a lot of people out there who are saying things that we agree with, and I don't really know that there's a one-size-fits-all solution to those problems. And knitting's different for everybody, just like everything else in the world. So
yes, but it did get us talking about how over the years that we've been knitting now, 10, 15 years?
Yeah.
Somewhere in there, that a lot of the things people are talking about are things that we have just learned through trial and error.
Yes.
And sometimes as a more experienced knitter, it's very easy to forget that learning curve that you've taken, relearning the craft. So we thought it would be fun to share with you guys some of our fails over the years and just have a little bit of fun with it. I mean, we all make mistakes. We've all had, at least in my case, probably at least 10 projects that were absolute total failures.
Yes.
So,
or just like, if not total failures, like if you had tweaked one little thing about them, they would have been usable. Or
if you would have known a little bit more about a fiber content, or insert XYZ, it would have been a more successful project.
Yes. Now, I will say, I went looking for a lot of these, and apparently I did a purge when we moved a few years ago. So I don't have very many of what I consider my fails anymore, because I'm pretty sure I just either threw them away or donated them or something. But I do have a few things here to show off.
Yeah, I have 3. I could probably go grab more physical objects from even recent makes that I've made, where it's like, if I would have just known, it could be better. But
I mean, even in the last year, I've had 2 sweaters go haywire because, I mean, that's just what happens sometimes,
Yeah, I also don't have a lot of my older failures, learning experiences. Yes. Because I've moved across the country twice now, and those are things that were not fittable within my Subaru each time.
High priority. Yeah.
And before I don't want to interrupt the flow too much, but before we jump in, at the start of the episode, do we want to talk about the new cowl we're going to run?
Sure.
Tease it a little bit?
Yeah. I know you and I have both had our eye on this new shawl pattern that came out, the Woodlark Shawl by Fiber Tales. And it is a colorwork shawl, but it is steeked. So we have decided to do a Steek-Along. So I have not done steeks before. I know you have, Naomi. This will segue into one of your semi-fails.
We were thinking of doing a Steek-Along. We'll run it through the end of the year. We haven't really talked about what platform we'll run it on. Do you want to do it on Instagram since Ravelry's kind of right now?
I think that's fair. Or, I mean, even I think if people just share on YouTube, I don't know. We can kind of iron out these details. We haven't even thought of a hashtag. This is a last night conversation. Yeah, so, we both started the shawl, right?
Yes.
You're farther than I am. I know that. I gotta dig mine out. Well, you have more to show off than I do, so you go ahead first.
So this is kind of looks like the Millennium Falcon right now.
I like those colors together.
I actually, now that I'm seeing it on camera, it's looking a lot. I like the colors together. I think I just need to get further into it. It feels very Easter egg to me right now.
I have no problem with that kind of color palette personally.
Yeah, this is the Steek panel right here. I modified the pattern just a little bit to do a running pearl on either side of the Steek. So, yeah.
I meant to do that, and I forgot to do pearls on mine. So, yeah, I have barely gotten some decent progress. I'm almost done with the first section. Mine still just kind of looks like a boob right now.
A bigger boob.
Yes.
With fringe.
Boobs with fringe. I went to my stash and I pulled this skein of Mondim, but it's part of the collab with La Bien-Aimée, and this is in, I think, the Winterfell colorway. I forgot to look at the label.
That sounds right.
So it's a really dark navy with hints of green in there. It's a really pretty color. And then I have this is my Highland wool base that I have a few skeins of in this shop. Not in this colorway. This is just something that I kind of dyed up to go with it. It's kind of a greeny yellow gray. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be using. So just to kind of hit on the affordability stuff, I splurged on a $36 skein of yarn here. This Highland wool, though, is something I think that I sell for around $20 in my shop. So, I mean, while that's still not the cheapest woolly wool, non-superwash wool that you can find out there, there are, there's a scale of yarn affordability options out there. And like you, I have a bag full of non-superwash scraps and minis and partials that I want to use up, and I'm probably going to also kind of multicolor my color work. So, that's my story.
Well, for mine, I'm using primarily more Bishi-Bouche. I will continue to butcher that pronunciation.
That's better.
Crazy.
That's not Biches and Bouches.
So my main color, I'm using an off-white ecru color. And then, for my color work, I'm using a variety of yarns that I have purchased at a variety of price points. So I have more partial skeins of Biches. I have some of your Highland wool that we dyed in North Carolina. And then I think I'm going to pull some Holst into it as well, since it's also a 2-ply woolen spun. And if you're a knitter on a budget and you don't mind a toothier, rustic, non-superwash wool, that doesn't bother you, this yarn is phenomenal. This cone costs $20, and there's over 500 grams in it.
Yeah.
I've already knit a sweater out of it, and there's still grams on the cone.
I keep saying I want to make a whole purchase, and I just, I have so much yarn that I can't really justify it without like a project in mind. But I think the pink's gonna look really pretty on there.
Yeah, I think it'll help make it a little less Eastery. I mean, I like this color palette too, don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. But I think this will help just get something that's a little bit warmer than all the other cool tones. I mean, it's still a cool, warm tone. That's an oxymoron. But you know what I mean.
It's a neutral tone.
So, yeah, and I have a sweater's quantity of this yarn that I keep meaning to make something out of. So, yeah, that's my project. And the Beaches is really great. It's $12.75 a skein for this yarn.
They are 50 grams, though. But
they are.
That's still better than $36 that I paid, but
for sure. Well, and the nice thing about this is even if you buy the two skeins, so if you spend the $25 on 100 grams, that's already 1,000 yards. It's about 500 yards per 50 grams.
Yeah.
So I just finished my Poet out of this, and that used 3.5 skeins. So I spent $50 on the sweater.
That's not bad.
No, not at all. So anyway, Steeking.
Yeah. Yes. Tell your Steeking story. Have you talked about this on your podcast before, or your
a long time?
Okay.
But I wanted, I don't know, like 2 years ago, I was like, I love knitting pullovers, but I like wearing cardigans more. So I was like, I'm just going to steek a pullover and kills two birds with one stone.
Right.
So I love the Zweig by Caitlin Hunter, and I did steek it. I eventually got it there.
I still need to knit that pattern too.
However, I knit this out of 100% superwash yarn, so both of these are merino nylon blends. And everything I watched, YouTube videos, blog posts that I read, they're like, oh, as long as you do either the crochet reinforced steek or this other method that I watched from Pearl Soho that like sandwiches your steek, they're like, you'll be fine. Right. They didn't say that, like, the asterisk is you'll be fine if you use a superwash or non-superwash, excuse
right.
me. I did not realize that if you're going to steek superwash, you have to do a machine reinforced steek with a sewing machine.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought I was going to be good. I picked up my steek. I reinforced it. I woke up the next morning at 6 a.m. all excited to steek my sweater. I'm not even kidding when I say, like, I woke up, I poured a cup of coffee, I sat on my living room floor with my sewing scissors and was like, all right, I'm going to cut this bitch. And then
then you had a panic attack.
Pretty much. And I cut it, and my steek didn't mean jack anymore. And everything started raveling and falling apart, and I was not pretty. So what I did was, because I did a purl ditch on this one, so I did a 10-stitch steek. So I had a purl row, then 10 stitches, then a purl row, and that's what I was cutting through.
Right.
So luckily, because I had those 10 stitches, as it was unraveling.
Words.
As it was doing that, it at least had like a ways to go versus if I had just had like a 2 or 3 stitch steek. So I was able to pick up the stitches along the seam here with a needle, and I just left them on the cable for like 3 months while I tried to figure out how to salvage this project.
I remember.
This project was a labor of love. I love the pattern, I love the design, but it is one of the more challenging knits I've probably done. This lace section, while beautiful, is a pain in the butt to work. And then,
I
sorry,
think that's mainly why I haven't knit that yet, is the lace.
Yeah, and then the body has this all over, like, 2-stitch cable, which you can work without a cable needle, but it was still tedious to do. It's not like it was mindless stockinette.
Right.
So yeah, this sat in timeout for about 3 months when I finally realized I could run a zigzag stitch on the sewing machine. Where's my camera? I don't know if y'all can see that. So yeah, I ran up and down that with my sewing machine like 6 times. And
hey, gotta do what you gotta do.
Gotta do what you gotta do. Yeah, and then I picked up the button band and knit a little border. And I have to say, even after all of that and salvaging this project, I almost never wear this because it just lays on my shoulders weird.
Mm-hmm.
And when I wear it,
that's another kind of piece of wisdom.
Yes. If you're
if you're gonna do steeks, which I guess we should slow down, and if you're new and you don't know what steeks are, as Naomi's already described, it's when you knit in extra stitches that you are intentionally going to cut when it's all said and done to open a piece of fabric up.
Yeah.
So again, it's traditionally done with non-superwash wool because it's going to grip and not unravel, whereas superwash wool has been like chemically treated. Wool, it's like if you ever seen the pictures of a piece of human hair and the scales, after it's been superwashed, those scales are gone, so it just slides, and that's why it loses that grippy property. So anyway,
yeah,
I didn't mean to like go off on a tangent there, but
no, you're good. So yeah, I just don't wear it because, you know, the way it was written, it was not meant to lay like this, so it just doesn't, I feel like it doesn't look that good when I'm wearing it, and I'm constant. I think it looks
bad, yeah.
But yeah, so then it constantly flips over and reveals my shame.
You should sew some buttons on it.
Oh, I didn't do buttonholes.
Oh, well, you should stick some buttonholes. Yeah.
So I think I just need to, oh my God, I'm so hot right now. I think I just need to like put some ribbon to cover that ugly bit. That'll help.
Yeah.
And then I've debated even going back and picking up the collar and knitting that so it just comes up a little bit more. And I think that would help as well.
I think you should do that. I mean, it's way too pretty to not wear and use. Yeah.
Yeah, I've only worn it like 3 times maybe.
And that was when we were in Scotland.
One was when we were in Scotland, and I think I've worn it to work once or twice. And one of my volunteers who loves purple as much as I do threatened to steal it from me. She's like an 87-year-old woman, so
anyway, yeah. So what I was getting to also there was, if you're gonna steek something that's been designed for steeks. So
yeah.
Lesson learned.
Yes. And like I steeked my Novelli, which is a whole nother failure, it's not
in a different way, yeah.
But yeah, I didn't divide soon enough for my armholes, but that one I knew part of the yarn was non-superwash, so I would probably be okay steeking the armhole in that pattern.
Right.
Which it worked out fine, and then my husband felted it in the wash.
Yay.
Thanks, dear.
Yes.
I'm not too mad. It is what it is.
I mean, I was going to say, you could knit another one.
I was just about to say, I can always knit another one, but I'm not going.
So,
I'm one and done with patterns.
I generally am too. I always say I want to knit a second one of something. Like, I would like a second one of these, the Scotch broom crop, but I don't know. I just can't. I need a wide passage of time in between. This is another one that I would like to have the sweater again. I wouldn't mind knitting this again, actually. So one of my fails is my Harley sweater. I love this thing.
That's a gorgeous sweater.
I don't think you can tell, but it has cables on it because you don't knit cables in black. So there, now you can see some of it.
That is such a pretty pattern.
It's a gorgeous pattern. I love the cable detail on the raglans. The little cable goes down the arm and onto the sleeves. And down here on the hem also. So this is actually a DK weight pattern that I knit in fingering weight. To be fair, I was getting gauge on the fingering weight, but this is a single ply yarn. And this is what made me realize I don't really care to knit for single ply yarn.
My one single ply garment was the same.
Yeah, it pills, and aside from the fact that knitting cables in black is a giant pain, yeah. So also, I have since grown since knitting this, so it doesn't really fit me anymore. And somewhere down here on the hem, I tried to give this to Mom last year, and she took it, and then she found,
She found a hole in it.
Yeah, there's a hole in the hem here. So I do have some of the leftovers of this yarn, and I can probably fix it. So I don't know if that is a result of the single ply or what.
Or a cat.
Or a cat or a dog or whatever, yeah. So actually, I would knit this again in DK weight yarn that it actually calls for.
And a light color that shows off all those beautiful cables.
Right. So I just need to actually get around to it one of these days.
Well, I'm a pretty big failure in terms of not swatching and gauge. I have two actually.
Mm-hmm.
Or a lot. Beginner Naomi went to go make a pair of TARDIS socks, and I don't have them anymore. It's been gifted as a Christmas present, but I'll put a picture in if I can find one. And yeah, I went to knit a pair of Doctor Who inspired TARDIS socks, went to Michael's, bought, I don't know, Lion Brand Thick and Quick for socks. So not even thinking about gauge or needing them to fit my foot. So I knit a Christmas stocking. And when I got, after the heel turn, when I got to working the body of the, still not realizing my mistake, I rapidly decreased the foot so it would still fit around my foot. So I had this gigantic tube, and then the heel turn, and then this little skinny
I need a picture of this.
And I was I don't get why it's so big. I don't get it.
That reminds me of the hat that I made for Jason probably 10 years ago when I was a new knitter. And he wanted, I don't even know if he wanted it. I was going to make him an R2-D2 hat. It's a hat that looks like R2-D2. And I used, this was probably my first foray into color work also, not even really knowing what color work was. So I'm pretty sure I just used Red Heart Super Saver, and I'm not knocking that, but
no.
Just, I'm pretty sure it had, I don't even remember what it was written for, but Jason has a fairly large head. So I was like, okay, whatever, as I'm knitting it, and I take it off, and it's just you could have probably fit it over, I don't even know. It was just ginormous. And I was like, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, it is what it is. And I always promised him another one, and that didn't happen. Yeah.
Oh, I had the opposite experience, once again, being a new knitter and not really knowing how to correctly follow a pattern. I was knitting John a hat as a Christmas present, and it could have been something like a Tin Can Knits pattern where they knit from everything from infant to size head. And I must have knit the smallest size because when it was done, and I was a nanny at the time, it didn't even fit the 3-year-old that I watched. I was like, oh, that'll just be Dawson's Christmas present. And then it didn't even fit on his head.
That's funny.
I made a yarmulke.
So, I do have a hat here. I have a habit of had a habit. I just tend to be like, oh, it's a hat. I can make a hat without a pattern. So yep. I had this bulky weight yarn and I was like, I'll just make a hat. But I don't know, it's really long and the decreases look funny. So, I mean, I'm like, it's a hat. It should be fine, right?
Is that
I don't know. It's not quite slouchy and it's not quite a beanie. It's somewhere in between. So really I should just rip back and follow some decreases. So I don't know if this is a full fail, but and my other hat fail is the one. This was probably one of my first few projects.
Oh yeah.
And this goes into fiber content also. I got some yarn from Michael's because, again, where we lived at the time, we didn't have a local yarn shop. We only had the big box craft stores. So I found some bamboo yarn there, and I was like, oh, this looks nice. It'll be cool.
Soft.
Yeah, and it's soft. So I was going to make the Urchin Hat by Isolde because that was all the rage then. And I had already knit it in something else. Oh, I wish I still had that.
Oh, I remember that hat.
The orange, coral one.
That was knit out of. Oh.
That was some funky yarn that I knit that out of.
Cotton in it.
It was bocule yarn. I can never say that word. Bocule.
Oh, bouncel?
Anyway, so I had already knit that pattern once, so I was like, okay, I know how to do it. I'll make kind of a more soft, slouchier version. And this bamboo hat was just gigantic because bamboo tends to stretch and it has a lot of drape to it. So
pizza dough hanging off the back of your after someone's tossed around a pizza.
Yes. So, yeah, that was one of my hats. I have a lot of hat fails, apparently. I think that's why I got frustrated with knitting hats for a long time, because I was like, none of them ever come out right. They're either way too big or way too small. Which even within the last year, I knit that Full of Minis hat that came out way too small.
Oh, so. I knit a sock head last year that's it's even too big for my head in the metric ton of hair that I have. And
surprisingly, my sock head came out perfectly, but I went down 2 needle sizes because of what you told me about your experience with one.
And I had a hat that I test knit called the Dashes hat, and it was a similar thing where I don't know, it's a yarn by Haiku, but it has cotton, bamboo, and silk is what it's made out of, and it just grew like pizza dough on my head. Yes. And John actually told me to stop making hats for him because they all turned into slouchy hats. And he didn't want to look like a hipster, with the.
I like wearing slouchy hats, but yeah.
Yeah, one of my early garment fails was a pattern called the feather dress, and it's the opposite of what you did with your Harley sweater. And it's a bulky weight dress that I knit out of fingering weight yarn. And,
my God.
And my genius idea was not to do math and get a gauge swatch, even though I know I did some kind of funky math to figure this out. But I just doubled the number of stitches needed for the size medium. So I just took all the numbers and multiplied them by 2.
Wow.
So when I finished, whatever bust measurement I made it for, it was 10 inches too big.
Positive ease.
And then some.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah, so I actually it has elastic right underneath the bust, which helped, so the body wasn't bad. But I had to go back in and, like, I pinched all the excess fabric in the back and I just sewed it.
Mm-hmm.
But then I had a lumpy back because I didn't cut the excess fabric away. Fudging it.
Yes.
John also felted that garment.
You need to keep him away from your washing machine.
He does the laundry. That's the thing. That's his chore.
Not very well, apparently.
Or too well.
Yeah. So, yeah, I kind of talked about in my sock video, too, about the first pair of socks that I knit being on, like, size 3 needles, and now I knit socks on size 1 needles because I got holes immediately in that pair of socks, which kind of...
Those.
Huh?
I remember you making those.
Yeah, they were... that was the thing. Like, I was like, I will knit anything when I first started knitting.
Yes,
like,
you
no
would.
fear. No, like, I think you taught me how to knit, and then I looked up how to do short rows for that urchin hat because you didn't know how to do short rows at the time.
Yep.
I was like, well, I'm going to learn how to do it.
I don't even think I had knit in the round yet by that point.
Well, that hat's not really knit in the round. It's all short rows, like in wedge shapes. So I should make another one of those.
I think Mom made one recently.
Mm-hmm. I think it's good for handspun yarn. So
yeah. Well, in terms of techniques, my Sunset Highway was the first colorwork sweater I made, but I did not yet know about catching floats.
Oh, yeah.
So my bra strap routinely, if I would wear this without even wearing it with an undershirt, the hooks on my bra strap catch my floats all the time. So I have some like funky colorwork bits because...
I didn't catch my floats either, but I haven't had that problem on my Sunset Highway.
So I don't consider that a fail because I still wear this, but if I would have known...
Yeah. And catching your floats is really easy.
Yeah. That's the thing with most of this stuff. It's always harder in your head till you sit down and try and do it, and then you're like, oh, why did I think I was climbing Everest, learning how to...
Right.
Like mentally preparing to learn something new, like, oh, this is about to kick my butt, when really it's not that hard.
The only other thing that I could find in my, like, chest of stuff, and I don't even know if I would consider this a fail. At one of my old jobs, people used to give me yarn, like a family member would pass away, and they would be like, here, I have this whole stash of stuff, take it. And me being broke at the time would take it. So I wound up with a bunch of this tweed. And it's pretty. And I'm pretty sure it's like acrylic or something. Yeah. So I made, it is called the like Senzi Oversized Shrug or something. And mine is like really oversized. So I had like no ball bands or anything to go off of like what this yarn is. I don't think that's the right way up.
That's cute.
It's like wearing a giant blanket, essentially. It's huge.
You could almost wear it as a scarf.
Like,
wrap it around your neck.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, okay, this is hot. I'm trying to wear this thing. So again, I had no idea. I could have maybe roughly worked out, like, what weight of yarn this is, and... I don't know. It doesn't even like stay on my arm. It's so gigantic.
You should steek those seams and just wear it as like a wrap or something.
I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. I should just turn it into a cat bed or something, because they like black stuff to lay on. So yeah, but I used up a bunch of yarn. Anyway, the only other thing that I was going to show off, unless you had something.
Oh, I could go on for days. I've made a lot of mistakes over the years.
I really think that's it for me. The only other thing that I was thinking about the other day was When I first started out, for some reason I got stuck on worsted weight yarn, and I knew I needed size 7 needles for worsted weight yarn. And like anything that was not within those parameters, I was not interested in making for whatever reason. And then eventually I did like learn about weights of yarn, but in my mind, for whatever reason, like I thought sport and fingering were still basically the same thing.
True.
And like, oh, DK and worsted are next to each other, so they're basically the same thing, which is sometimes true, but there are still nuances between them.
Hey, Black Cat.
What do you got to say? So, like, really appreciating there are differences between these things. There's a reason that they're classified that way. It is important. So, anyway.
Yeah. I would say the other thing that I have maybe not learned the most out of, because in all of these I've learned something about fiber content or gauge or using the right yarn for the right project. My other fail learning experience is bind offs, which I've been on the hunt for the perfect bind off for a while. But the one that did it for me was my Mary Mietmo, and I did what you do, and it just doesn't work for me, which was going up 4 needle sizes and just binding off the traditional way, but it feels like it's choking me. So I need to undo that and just do the twisty bind off. But in all the things that I made, constantly being I don't like this bind off, I don't like this bind off, it pushed me to learn a few different bind offs.
Right.
So I found the one that I like. So
that's true. Yeah.
Which my preferred is the twisty bind off.
For me, bind offs is I just can't be bothered to memorize any of those other ones.
Oh, easy to memorize.
The going up the needle sizes works for me, so I continue to do it.
I would just like to say, for everyone out there who's going to say they love tubular bind off, it's not my jam. I'm sorry. I've tried it. It looks, I don't know if I'm doing it wrong, but I've followed video tutorials. I've read how to do it, and it just looks like garbage to me whenever I do it.
I've had the same experience, and I've only tried it once, but when I did it, I was like, I don't get what all the hype is about, because I don't think it looks that great, and it was really fussy to me. I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything with the bind offs that I'm using.
No. Hashtag unpopular opinion.
Yes. So this is just for funsies, because I found them when I was digging through drawers. I do have proof that I know how to sew, because I mentioned this on my last episode. When I was in 7th or 8th grade, I took home ec, and I did learn how to sew something. I learned how to make a pair of boxers, and they are in Baby Sesame Street characters.
Yeah.
Wow. So, sock fail, long gone, but boxers from 20 years ago, I still have.
Amazing. Hey, you must have gone down in skill level by time I made it to, what was her name, Miss Snyder or whatever her class. Anyways, it was the same home ec teacher, because we went to the same middle school.
Oh, I don't even remember what the teacher's name was, because it was only half the year also. It was one of those things.
My class we drew with markers on iron-on transfers. And then our sewing project was then to take these iron-on transfer patches, and we made pillows. So we didn't even get anything as complex as a pillow. Yeah, I remember learning how to cook some in that also. But anyway. I remember making pancakes with orange juice in them.
That sounds good.
They're okay.
Okay, yeah, I didn't mean to derail the conversation.
No, it's all good. So, I mean, this is 45 minutes, so that's probably good for a natter.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we want to talk about with the people out there in the world?
I am this close to hitting 300 subscribers on my channel, which is Felicity Yarn Studio. So if you guys aren't subscribed, you should go over there and do that because I want to do a 300 subscriber giveaway. Just waiting.
We'll show some love.
Anyway, yeah. I don't know if you have anything else you want to share with the people.
I will be the people. I will be going up to see the aunties next weekend, so I might vlog that. I've been thinking about it. Aunties, if you're watching, gather all your whips so you can show them off on the channel.
Oh, yeah. That'll be fun.
But yeah, I was thinking a mini show and tell up there might be fun. Different.
Yeah. See what everybody's working on.
Plan on taking fabric haul up there to get all of the project bags made.
Which it felt like a lot of fabric when I was sending it, but now I'm like, I don't know if that's a lot of fabric.
I think I'm going to give them all of my fabric stash as well, just because I know I am highly unlikely ever to use it. I say that now.
I don't have a lot. I sent you most of what I had that was in like big significant pieces. Everything else is just kind of little bits and bobs, so...
My problem is I really want to sew a garment, but I feel completely out of my depth with that. It's something where I wouldn't mind paying and taking a class to learn. At least
I agree with that.
One.
Yeah.
Because I know people have said, like, oh, just buy, like a McCall's pattern and just follow the pattern. But I bought one of those when I was like 17, and I remember opening the pattern up and being like, what the hell am I looking at?
See, and I have had my hand held through part of that process. Like, I started a pattern like that when I was a teenager with my godmother and got through, like, the cutting out, and we started piecing pieces together, and then for whatever reason, we just never finished that project. Plus, I used to work at the bag place that, like, sewed bags, so... I'm familiar with pattern pieces and how you're supposed to put things together, but I was doing the graphic design, not the bag sewing while I was there. So I feel like I could probably follow a sewing pattern, but yeah, I wouldn't mind having someone hold my hand the first time through on something like that.
So that's my big reason I haven't done it. That, and then, like, if I'm going to make my dress, like, the Hinterland dress is really cute.
Yes, I want to make that.
And then there's another dress. I'll link it down below. I know I've texted it to you before. That I'm like, oh, that would be really cute with something like this.
Right.
The linen that I would want to buy to make it out of is $15 a yard, which I don't mind spending on it, but also don't want to mess it up. If I'm in, you know what I mean? Like, if I'm going to invest in the material, I don't want my first time making it to be my Zweig.
I get it. Yeah. I mean, I feel like investing in your materials, like, assuming you sew it correctly and it fits and you wear it, it's like buying a nice piece for your wardrobe. But yeah, I agree that I would like to have a little experience under my belt before I invest. Yes. So.
Yeah, I think this has a, but
I mean, yeah, we said we were going to talk about fails, so
yeah,
we talked about it. I can't think of any other fails that I have off the top of my head.
I also don't wear my Elton that much because it's not really a knitting fail, but it's definitely something to be aware of. Like, you look at a schematic and you, at least for me, when I look at a pattern, I think, I pick the size according to my bust.
Right.
But then when I look at the sleeves, I don't necessarily assume that the size written for my bust is going to be like, yeah, like, I don't know who she's knitting arms for, but
she's got scrawny little arms.
Sorry, Hohi.
Love you, Hohi, but yeah. I found that on more than one of her patterns. The arms are never big enough.
These are like 2 inches too small in her. which if I would have looked at the schematic, I would have realized and said, like, oh, I need to adjust.
Mm-hmm.
But I assumed the arm measurement would correspond to the bust measurement. But so I wear this because I have sausage arms in it.
And I think that also goes to the thing about larger busts that you and I have both spoken about. Yes, at my largest point, my bust might be X number of inches, but they go out. Like, you need that extra fabric to come back down and around them, you know. So I appreciate designers' job in that they have to scale for all of these sizes and grade and all of that. I know it's not easy, and in theory, you should just be able to go up in increments when you're writing those numbers. But that's why knitting a pattern that has been test knit is really important. I think that's another good point for knitting fails is do your research before you cast on and start something. Go read other people's Ravelry project notes and things. This is a gripe that I have with Ravelry. I wish you could sort projects by size that people have knit. I wish everybody would put the size that they knit first of all.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, but also then you could sort by that size because I think it's really relevant for how much yarn somebody used, how that fit wound up, all kinds of things. So,
which I'm guilty of this as well, but just write notes.
Or that, yeah. Just write notes. Yeah.
Which
I try to. It doesn't always happen. It happens more often with garments, I'll say. Like, if I'm making vanilla socks, it's the same vanilla sock that I make all the time. I don't feel like I need to put notes up for that. But something with nuance, like I know what you're wearing Soldotna, and a lot of people had issue with the neckline on that because it didn't look like,
still doesn't look like
the pattern page. Like the pictures that apparently Caitlin Hunter put up, people think it didn't look, it's not as high and tight. So I don't know. I know a lot of times too when designers are writing a pattern, they make that initial sample and that's what's in pictures, but they may have gone back and tweaked things so it doesn't look exactly the same. So
yeah.
But again, how do you know these things unless you've been knitting for 10 years or however long? So
yeah, it's a lot of trial and error.
Yeah. But to me, that's the fun.
Yes.
Is the learning and the doing. And yeah, it's frustrating at times, but also, like, that's why I'm into it as a hobby, you know?
I like the challenge.
I do too. I like to figure things out and know how they're done and constructed. And I like the satisfaction of knowing that I made something myself.
I like, particularly in terms of constructing garments, like I like that I have the basic recipe for all intents and purposes.
Right.
Provided to me by the designer, but just like cooking, I mean, the recipe's just a rough template. So like,
yeah,
I've started with a lot of my garments I'm making now. I've started adding waist shaping because I got curves and that's just more flattering for my figure.
Yeah, and I have a curvy figure too, but I don't like waist shaping necessarily.
It depends.
So to me, that's one of the good things is you can customize it for yourself and your body. And I think, to me, I've always approached patterns like that yes, it's customizable. It's not, you have to do X, Y, and Z. And I know there are knitters who want the yarn that's prescribed. They want the pattern. They want every single detailed instruction. That's just not how I make. So to me, that's like, doesn't sound like fun to me. I want to make it my own.
Well, part of the fun for me is picking out the yarn and saying, how do I envision this? But then, how can I make it then to suit my personal style and aesthetic and what I find flattering on my body? And even to go back to waist shaping, like even that now,
Yeah.
I'm playing around with it, whether I do inset waist shaping or on the side seams or just in the back of the garment.
And then there's darts and all other kinds of things you can play with. Yeah.
I do think I'm going to cast on in the near future the Rift Tee by Jacqueline Cieslak, because I bought the pattern and that includes a ton of shaping for the bust area. And I think doing that will be, because I've never done boob shaping before, and so I think that'll be useful for learning some of that.
I think the sorrel, it didn't have it in the front, but it had shaping around this area in the back. And I think that was more to raise the back of the neck rather than shaping around the bust area. I've seen patterns that have kind of darts worked in the bust area, but I've never knit them. So
yeah, that's been something, shaping in general has been something I've been reading a lot about lately when I'm not knitting, like in my downtime, because I'm interested in achieving the best possible fit that I enjoy. And so that's something, I don't know, I enjoy going down those rabbit holes. Like you said, it's part of the craft and it's part of what I enjoy about the craft. And
the only other thing that I was going to go off of there is, I know there's also people out there who have a hard time envisioning, like, there's a name for it where you can't see things in your head. Like, I have a very good mind's eye. Like, I can generally picture things. Like, if I was going to paint this room blue, I can picture that in my mind, whereas I know other people can't do that. Sometimes
that on a level.
Yeah. And like sometimes it's hard to look at a skein of yarn, especially like a variegated or a speckled skein, and look at it and be like, I don't know what this is going to do. That's why swatching is your friend. But like for solid colors and stuff especially, I think that is a little more simple. But again, it comes down to appreciating that not every knitter is the same. What was it that we heard the other day? There's no always in knitting. Like, that is something people need to remember, and like be flexible, be open to learning new techniques. Like, I don't know.
Be open to ripping out your work if you don't
like it.
I remember, I think you might have sent it to me on Instagram like 3 years ago. Someone posted either about doing like surgery on their project or wholesale frogging it. And it was like, it's not time wasted, it's time spent learning or something to that effect. Like,
worst comes to worst, you can always frog your project and start over. I mean, it's not time wasted, because how would you have known unless you did that? And again, even when I'm sitting there, like when I knit half of my stalactite and then I realized it was too big last year, I still enjoyed those hours that I spent knitting on it, like I still got to enjoy that yarn. I got to enjoy that yarn twice as much, essentially.
You got to alert me that I would be encountering the same issue before that far.
And then like when you made your Elton, I knew to make my sleeves bigger on my Elton.
Yeah.
Which I don't wear my Elton either quite as much as I thought I would, only because it's fuzzy and
pills a lot.
It does pill a lot. So that's kind of been a learning curve with everybody's knitting everything with mohair right now, and nobody talks about the fact that still pills and sheds a whole lot. So I kind of feel like I have to reserve those garments for more kind of delicate situations. But I don't know, we're still learning, like even with a combined 20-25 years of experience here, like, it is what it is.
Learn something new on.
Yes.
So that's the beautiful thing. We're lifelong learners, all of us who knit or crochet or weave or spin or
dye or do whatever you do. Anyway.
So yeah, with that, I think it's probably time to wrap everything up. So if you enjoyed today's video, hit that thumbs up button. If you're not already subscribed, hit subscribe on my channel. Hop on over to Zoe's channel.
I got yarn I want to give away, y'all. I'm just saying.
And show her some love, and we'll be back with another joint call in a month or so over on her channel. So that's another reason to subscribe so you stay up to date with our knit and natters.
All right, guys. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Happy knitting. Let me get this untangled first because